swag, ideas to flow. Steph and Joe are on the go, go. Sharing what we know from the classroom to the show. It's Steph and Joe on the go. Innovation, education, moving fast with dedication. Come along, let's start the flow. It's Steph and Joe on the go.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing? Happy Friday, Steph. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's busy. May is busy when you have kids. Nobody warned me
It
about
is. It is. It's busy with your actual kids. It's busy with your student kids. It's busy with your staff. It's busy all around.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, we have preschool graduation. We've got muffins for moms. We've got a field trip. What? Like, where did all this come from?
Well, it's like sometimes schools go, oh no, we forgot these things. Let's just push it to May, and then everything just piles up.
Yeah, for sure. And so there's also been some recent news from President Trump, right? Like he issued an executive order. And I kept hearing here, there's been some popularity around this AI. I want to say A1 though, after having this like AI workforce. A lot of districts are having like these AI teams, but I feel like the term I'm mostly hearing is workforce, right? And so
Yeah.
we need to dive a little bit into this topic.
Yeah, there's been a lot of executive orders that have been pushed out in these last few months, and quite a few of them you hear on the news, and people are fighting them, but this one kind of went under the radar. It came out about 2 weeks ago. I want to say April 22nd, 23rd, and we heard rumblings about this. There was like a draft order in place, and I think we even talked about it in mid-April. Go, maybe we should talk about this on the podcast, but we're like, let's wait to see if it actually comes to fruition. And boom, lo and behold, it's here. And Steph, I have to tell you, I'm really excited. I'm really excited about this because sometimes, the tech-tosas and the techie people on campus, they get really excited about new things like AI, but not necessarily our administrators or some of our teachers that either sit on the fence or wait to see if something's actually going to be pushed forward. I think this kind of pushes the needle, showing you where like things are going, and it might actually start more conversations in more districts. So that's why I'm really excited, because it seems like there is some teeth to this executive order and some great benefits to districts who start an AI program of training their teachers and students on proper use and ethical use of these tools. So I'm really excited because it's stuff we've been talking about for months. And now to have the opportunity to do this district-wide across the nation, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think too, right, like AI has just been driving a lot of the innovation right now and productivity. It's also been reshaping. And I feel like when AI first came out, I was seeing a lot of substitution. So if we're looking at that SAMR model, really just kind of focused on that substitution where, okay, I'm just going to kind of substitute this for AI, right? But now I feel like I'm starting to hear districts and individuals talking about how creative they're using AI to support student learning. Like, I mean, I know, Joe, you were just sharing with me the other day, your students were practicing writing, right? Descriptive writing, and they had to come up with nouns, adjectives. And I remember when I had to do that as a student, it was like I had a worksheet and I had to label it above the word on the sentence, right? I was kind of going through each sentence. Where here, I remember you telling me, like, you were like, okay, I want you to think of an animal. So they thought of their noun. Then you were like, okay, close your eyes and think about what does your animal look like and grab those adjectives. And it was a whole new experience compared to how I learned, right, about the adjectives and grammar and the nouns to that. And then they get immediate feedback. Did it picture what you wanted by using that AI function, right? And so I feel like at the beginning, again, it was very substitutional, but now we're using it in higher levels.
Yeah, and one of the things I hear quite a bit, right, from educators is, this is great and all, but when when am I going to have the time to learn to do this stuff? When am I going to have the time, to figure this out? Or, oh, this is the one I hear quite often. Tell me if you hear this. This is just one more thing you're adding to my plate, right?
Yep.
This is just one more thing adding to my plate. And, by this time in our career, that is a common theme that I hear quite a bit. Oh, that's great and all, but when am I going to find the time to add this? My plate is already full. Well, the great thing about this executive order is one of the main functions of it is to provide grant monies from the Department of Education for schools who have a plan to train their teachers, and they are going to provide grant monies to offer to teachers to take this training. And that's great because, oh my goodness, this is such a huge topic. It's not something you can have in a one and done 60-minute one training and say, okay, you're all trained on AI, Godspeed and have a good time with it, right? This is something that needs to be continuous, and it needs to be done in a model that is, I'm going to share with you some information. You're going to get together in your grade level groups and you're going to see what this information, how it can transform what you currently do. Because I truly believe that collaboration model plus grade level groups are the only way this is going to work. But again, the commodity that we always need more of but never have enough of is time. And how are we going to provide that time to teachers during their regular workday? And if not, how are we going to provide compensation to teachers if we're asking them to do this off their regular workday? And that's what I love about this executive order, is that it firmly plants the flag in saying, we are going to provide grant money to schools that are doing this. And, you can use that money to train your teachers, pay your teachers, do those kinds of things. And I love it because it takes that burden off of the table of, well, how are we going to pay for this? Well, there's going to be grant monies coming our way. So I absolutely love that, because training is the only way we're going to have teachers see that AI is not one more thing to add to your plate. It is the plate. It is the thing that you can start putting things on and make it easier to push out, easier to create. It's pretty cool once you dive deep into it. But if you don't have time to dive deep into it, you're never going to see the depth and breadth of its capabilities. And if you don't ever see its capabilities, you may never try it, and it may just never come to fruition in your classroom or into your pedagogical approaches. So getting this out in front of teachers, giving them a space, giving them the time, and giving them compensation if need be, that is key to a great rollout. And I'm glad that there's at least a structure being formulated on how they can supply district with grant money to make their mission and vision of AI adoption a reality.
Yeah, and I think too, it also kind of talked about emphasizing like that collaboration between educators and industry leaders and like employers, which, I mean, I've been listening to a podcast and it just is like how people from different industries are using AI. And so I think it's really helpful and interesting how even the job force, like where our students are going, could potentially change because of AI. How are they going to use that AI in that future career? And so I thought that part of that collaboration between, again, educators, that industry leaders, and employers in the executive order was really important. And I was just wondering, like, how do you think that might go across with your district, Joe?
Yeah, that is a key component of this, right? Understanding that industry is changing. And it's changing at such a fast pace, we can't sit back and let our normal cycle of change in the education system take place. The normal cycle of change is a very long one in the education system. It takes time to adopt. It takes time to train. It takes time to implement. It takes time to model. Like it's a huge cycle. And knowing that when we're using these tools, industry is using them now, and it's just going to get more in depth, more sophisticated. The industry knows we need to make sure that we are training people on how to properly, effectively, and ethically use AI during the course of their workday. And in fact, one of the number one job questions that have been added to applications and interviews is, how are you currently using AI to amplify your workload? How are you using AI to amplify, what you do? Because they want to see how AI is making you a better worker. And if you're not using AI, you're probably going to get passed over for somebody who is. And we don't want any of our students passed over. So they need to learn these new skills, these new AI literacy skills, in order to be successful in the future job market or the current job market. So we're jumping on it now, which is great because, again, the change cycle in education is not always the quickest.
Yeah, that's so true, right? Like it's not going to sometimes, and I think some people still have resistance. So how can we support those educators, either teachers, sometimes it's also instructional coaches, right? Like that are told they have to lead this. Like how do you make sure that they're excited and they have all the knowledge they need to either deliver it? Because it could be a principal in some districts and that principal is just like, I'm not for this, right? Or I don't know about this. So how do you get folks excited to want to lead this initiative within and training teachers and supporting staff and getting them all prepared?
Well, you definitely need to get together a cohort of educators, administrators, stakeholders who have been using AI and see its benefit. You got to start there because you have to create the hype cycle somewhere. And then once you start talking about how you're using it, maybe you can then have them, okay, now we're going to go share with our colleagues how we're using it to kind of start this kind of grassroots movement. Because you kind of want to lay the groundwork a little bit. That's what we've been doing here in our district for this past year. We've been laying the groundwork. So, we've been presenting to administrators, either district level or site level. We have been presenting to, various departments at the high school, because we know that there are various departments at the high school that are completely anti-AI and only see it as a cheating tool, right? So we want to make sure that we're kind of touching all facets. And once we start seeing movement, we want to create now I don't want to say this the wrong way. Let's say a uniformed message, because we want to make sure everybody is getting at least the baseline training on what AI is and what AI isn't, what AI is capable of and what AI is not capable of, what you can use AI for, what you should not use AI for. Like, we want to give a baseline message to everybody that is not necessarily grade level specific or content area specific, right? So to me, we would call that AI 101, right? A uniform message across the board. Every single district employee is given this training, and that training, between 60 and 90 minutes, right? At least once you're there, you have teachers who have been exposed to what AI really is, not what they've heard on the news or have heard from friends or have heard on social media. They truly can see what AI is capable of. And then from there, you can move on to AI 102, right, which would dive deeper into prompt engineering and practices at content specific or grade level specific prompting. And then, of course, AI 103, which would be bringing in some tools, something like, School AI or something like Snorkel into the mix to show them how an AI tool can truly, amplify the teaching and learning prospects and amplify the feedback cycle for students, and so you're slowly building capacity. So this is definitely a 3-year, 4-year plan when we're talking about rolling out an AI initiative. But knowing that there is funding that can come our way because of this executive order, oh my goodness, it gave me a huge sigh of relief, because that was the number one thing I was asking. Where are we going to find the money to pay teachers to come to these trainings? Now we don't really have to find the money, because we basically write the grant and we say, show us the money because we wrote it. So that's the hope that we have right there.
Yeah, and again, like I think when you can pay teachers, right, for their time to invest in training, they're going to be more engaged and they're going to be more like excited about it, I feel like, because sometimes we're like, oh, do this voluntary training for us. And then they're like, no, I don't want to, right? Or you have signups and only 10% of the staff comes, and the account, the amount of people that do show up, it's like, oh, not everybody's trained. And so that can cause a lot of barriers and roadblocks when you're trying to push out initiatives. So I'm glad it is being supported.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, we have the opportunity because we've talked about initiatives on our podcast. We've talked about initiative fatigue, right? We've talked about all these things, and that was a concern that our team brought up was, oh man, we already have the Positivity Project initiative. We already have the Digital Citizenship initiative. We already have this, and this is just one more initiative that we're going to be placing on the teachers. And I'm like, yes, but it's not a product rollout, right? Like, Positivity Project, even though it's an initiative, it's really a product you're trying to sell to a campus. AI is not a product. AI is a whole transformative way of teaching and learning. And that's like so much bigger than anything else. I mean, imagine, Steph, if there was no such thing as a pencil and nobody knew how to write, and we finally invented a pencil and kids now can write. That would be something we wanted to make an initiative about. We have to teach these kids how to write because we now have this new tool and there's so much they can do by writing now. That's what AI is. It's a new form of a pencil. It's a new invention that changes everything. So it's not just an initiative that's good to have. This is a must-have. And we have to put it at a top priority because it's moving so fast in industry. Education is already playing catch up, and it's only been a couple of years. So we have to get on this. And so when you're presenting all these things, you have to be passionate. You have to showcase why this is important, why this is nothing like another initiative that's been rolled out. This is basically a transformative initiative that is going to affect everybody. And so you have to be able to present it in that way. And you have to make sure you have a group of educators or presenters who are just as passionate about this as we are. Because as we all know, if you're a passionate presenter, you have a passionate listening audience. If you're a passive presenter, you're going to have a passive listening audience. And we want our audience, we want our teachers to be passionate about this. And so we want to make sure we roll it out with passion and intent. And, hopefully this executive order, helps us do that with the funds they are promising that they're going to be providing us.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, so, and you might not know for sure this answer, Joe, but how will you measure success? So once you kind of get this initiative going, what might educators use as some metrics to indicate, did we meet, are our teachers, are our students feeling more AI prepared for the future? What are you thinking will show that?
Yeah, so that's a great answer. Before, you might do a pulse check every once in a while, but for this, I think there needs to be a constant contact, person on the ground at every campus that can kind of hold listening sessions with their staff. We don't want to do a district-wide listening session because we know every site is different, at every school district. So, what we have decided to do is we're creating a summer program where we're going to go through, 12 hours of AI training with educators that sign up. And it's going to be one educator from every school site in our district. Of course, they're going to be compensated, but it is over the summer. And we've talked about the difficulties of summer PD, but we're filling the spots. So that's fantastic. But the idea is to create what we call AIEs, right? Artificial Intelligent Experts. And so there'll be one AIE at every campus. And then every month, they're going to hold listening sessions with their staff. And those listening sessions are going to include what's working, what's not. What tools have you found that seems to amplify what you're doing? What are some examples of activities you've created where you've successfully implemented AI? What are some successful ways students have used AI? So sharing out at your PLCs, sharing out at your staff meetings, constant conversations about this, led by an expert who understands the mission and vision of your AI program. That is how you measure success. That is how you continue the growth of these tools. Because, as we know, a lot of times you do a presentation, maybe half the people resonate with it and use what you did, but the other are like, that was nice, maybe I'll try it if I have time, and then nothing ever comes of it. But if you have someone on campus they can go to, that security blanket of if I fail, they can help me. Or if I have an idea, they can help me. That is the important thing, having somebody on every campus. So that's what we're going to try. We're going to deploy this. We're going to see how it works. And then, of course, it's a constantly evolving program, and so we'll see, if success can be measured that way. If not, we'll adjust. But that's our vision right now of how we're going to roll it out and how we're going to kind of have a continual cycle of reimagining through the feedback of the actual users, meaning the teachers and the students.
Yeah, and I was watching a webinar. I think it was hosted by School AI, and it was Holly Clark and Nadine Gillison were on the webinar. And I really loved how Nadine, she shared some resources on that webinar. I'm trying to figure out the name. I think it was I'll have to find it and put it in the show notes. But anyways, what she was doing is she had an AI cohort. So it wasn't every single teacher. It was just a small pilot group. So this pilot group, they were kind of, had the kind of vision of how they could use AI for personalized learning, to support inclusive learning as well, and then also to kind of stay ahead of the technology, right? Like those were kind of their ways of they could kind of use AI to support that student learning. And she even broke down different cohort levels. So she had a basic, and this teacher that was basic listed out those expectations. They received a $50 a month stipend, and they would watch self-paced videos. They would participate in the discussion board. They also had to provide some documentation of how they were using the AI in their class. And then there was this premium group. So I loved how she had those two groups. And so the premium group, they received a stipend of $100 a month. They watched the self-paced videos. They had to provide that documentation. They, though, had to create a goal, and they had to track the effectiveness of that AI tool with data points. So maybe I'm an intervention specialist, and I'm like, okay, I'm really struggling to differentiate this instruction with my students. So that teacher made some type of goal. And then over time, they would see, okay, how did the student maybe do on the pre-assessment compared to the post-assessment when we used AI? And on the webinar, she showed how the data was supporting her EL and her special ed groups of students, those subgroups to support. So I really love the way that she organized it. And the premium also, the teacher or a student had to provide a video clip and give feedback of how this tool was working. So again, I highly recommend talking to Nadine or looking over that webinar. I'll put the link in the description because I thought it was just really insightful. Some of the ways that she was supporting teachers in that rollout and just providing that clear upfront. Okay, if you just want the basic level, here you go. But if you're ready to keep going and you want a premium, maybe you can kind of use some of that stipend in that way.
No, I love that. And as you were talking, the number one thing I was saying is, well, how are you going to fund this? Then I go, that executive order. They have grants for this kind of thing, right? Because you always want to add those incentives. I love that she did that. I love the lower level group and then the advanced group. $50 a month, $100 a month, and all we need is your feedback, right? Everybody loves to fill out those forms and get a $5 Amazon gift certificate, right? So filling out this form for school and getting $50 actual dollars or $100 actual dollars is amazing. I'm going to definitely look at that because I think that's a great model. And if we can then make that a site model that can then expand to a district model, that could be the way to go. So I am definitely going to watch that webinar from School AI. I'm definitely going to grab those resources and run them through to see what we can implement over here because I love that idea. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, and it's called Teaching in the Age of AI. And again, I'll put the webinar link right into the show notes. I just really loved, even if you're not implementing AI, I love the way that Nadine really thought out how she was going to organize a new initiative by kind of saying, okay, here's the basic. Here is like your must do level, but if you want to go further, here is an additional, stipend for you. Here's what you have to do to reach those goals. And I also love the goal tracking, because I think that's what motivates some of the teachers. That can really help. If you can say, okay, I tried using blank tool, I tried using blank strategy, I tried using this, this, and this, and you can show that that data did improve student engagement or student scores, that makes me excited, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, what I did actually worked. And so I think if we're tracking that, we can see, okay, this really does support that student learning.
No, I mean, that's fantastic, right? And and another thing, some stuff about this executive order is that there's some time frames they've placed into it. So one of the time frames is, within 90 days of the signing of that executive order, which was back on April 22nd or 23rd, 90 days, the government is going to have their own working group with various directors and department chairs of institutions, of education, and of industry, to talk about the needs of AI literacy, and how do they see it being needed to be incorporated into education. And then within 120 days, they have ordered the Department of Education to find funding to be able to provide to schools who are doing this transformative professional development on AI for their teachers. And so I love how fast they're moving with this, because oh my goodness, if a school can see what is needed and then create something as a team over the summer and begin slowly rolling it out at the beginning of the 25-26 school year, they are in the perfect position to apply for these grants when they come out, to do the funding model like you were talking about, the $50 or the $100 a month. That would be amazing, right? And I also want to point out a couple more things. That I love what was said in the executive order, and it was, this is not a STEM initiative, okay? They said this is not a computer science initiative. This is a whole K-12 initiative for kindergarten through university, or kindergarten through 12th grade. And I love that, because, some teachers are like, well, AI is a STEM thing. I don't teach STEM, so I'm not going to use it. Or AI is a computer science thing. I'm not a computer science teacher, so I'm not going to use it. And they're saying, no, AI is such a transformative tool. Everybody needs to know how to use it. But what I want educators to know is this: there's no mandate that says teachers have to use AI. What they're saying is teachers need to know about AI. They need to know what it is and how it can be used in education. Why? Because teachers are going to need to be able to train students how to use it. So even if you, the educator, don't believe in AI, don't want to use AI, you still have to understand it, because kids will want to. And we have to be supportive of them. And we need to know that AI is not just used for cheating. And this is something I point out to every teacher I talk to. I say, if you think AI is used for cheating, you just wait. If we do nothing, if we as educators do nothing, cheating is going to become a norm for kids, right? As long as I don't want to say that, because we do know that a lot of our students have great character and they wouldn't cheat no matter what. So I don't want to put them into this. But if we do nothing, students are going to learn to use these tools on the TikTok, on the gram, and they're not always going to use them for ethical ways. So we, the teachers, are almost like their driver's training teacher of AI. We need to train them on proper and ethical uses of AI. That means every teacher needs to know what those proper uses are and those ethical uses are, and be able to train students on that. So even if a teacher doesn't want to use AI, they still need to know what it is and how to use it for the betterment of their kids.
Yeah, no, for sure. Oh, that was a great episode. I for sure learned a lot about the AI plan and just again talking about how to implement it and how to set those goals. Any last tips or tricks for our listeners, Joe?
Yeah, I think whatever you're doing in your school with AI, whatever tools you are loving and using and sharing, we need to remember this: it's not about the tech, it's about the technique, right? Don't focus on a single tool. Don't become in love with a single AI tool. And I know I can if I said to our listeners right now, what's your favorite AI tool? I know right off the bat you might be able to label one or two. And I would say my favorite AI tool is me. I'm the biggest AI tool. Why? Because it's how we ask our questions. It's how we write our prompts that make the AI effective and reliable. And without knowing how to truly prompt engineer, we're basically just button pushers when it comes to AI. When you learn the technique of crafting an amazing prompt, creatively writing a prompt that has AI create or do something for you you never thought possible, that comes from your critical thinking of how do I ask it? What am I going to ask it? And how am I going to lay it out to ask it to make the AI effective? That's why the technique of prompt engineering is the most important aspect of learning how to use AI. So don't focus on a tool. Don't focus on a single tech. Focus on the technique, and that will take us everywhere. That is my number one thing. So if you're rolling out PD, don't roll out a PD of tools, roll out a PD of technique, and then you can slowly roll those into tools. But technique first before tech. That would be my number one recommendation for anybody looking to start an AI work group.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks guys for listening. And we want to hear your ideas. What are you doing right now for your AI task force? What are you doing with your group of educators to get this out and rolling? Because I'm sure some of you have great ideas and it would just be really beneficial, I think, if the community could hear about how you're also kind of considering how are you going to support educators with implementation of this?
Yes, many hands make light work, and nobody has all the answers, but together we have many of them. So yeah, sharing is caring, all those things. So yes, let us know what you're doing, how you're doing it, your thoughts, because we would love as a community to come up with the best way possible to get teachers on board to help our students excel in their use of AI. So thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you. And we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you later. Thanks all.